Hi, Helen here. Thanks a million for signing up for my workshop, fermentation live workshop. I'm going to be sending out the recipe pack to you today, but I just wanted to hop on just to talk about some of the things that we'll need for the workshop and to ask for just some of the items to be a little bit ready. The first thing obviously that you're going to need for the workshop is a cabbage, because we're making sauerkraut. So I have my cabbage here. I'm going to use a whole cabbage first, so get your whole cabbage, and if you could actually have it ready and sliced in advance, that would be brilliant. The first thing I'd ask you to do is to keep some of the outer leaves, because we might use those then as part of making sauerkraut for our weight. So if you can hang on to those, that'd be brilliant. The second thing, when you're cutting your sauerkraut, the first thing you do is chop it in half. The second thing then is to chop it in quarters. And actually, if you could keep this core piece that's in the cabbage, so this piece here, it's kind of, quite thick anyway, it won't be suitable for slicing. So if you can keep that, we might use that as our weight as well. So you'll end up with 4 of those, so that'd be very handy. Then when you're cutting your cabbage, you just have your quarter there and you just cut along. So I say just like that. So you can do that by hand, or I have some of my cabbage done in a food processor. So this is the way I usually do it. I just do it on the slicing mechanism of the food processor. So you end up with it just kind of that much, a little bit finer, but both are totally fine. So if you don't have a food processor, don't worry, you can do it by hand. And you're just trying to slice it down so that you have your cabbage ready before we start. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I just wanted to mention to you was just about some of the bowls and bits and pieces that would be very useful to have. So if you have some of these big bowls, so I have some of these big plastic bowls, or if you have that kind of old-fashioned baking bowl, stuff like that would be great for your sauerkraut. And then we're going to do a carrot ferment as well. So at least 2 big bowls to have your ferment in. And the other thing that you're going to need are some of the glass jars to put it into. So the ones I have are these Kilner jars, which have got the flip top lid on them. These are from IKEA. So if you're anywhere near IKEA, well, I suppose it's not in a lot of people's 5K probably, but if you are near IKEA, or somewhere like Woody's actually has them as well, they have the Kilner jars. So these are great for making sauerkraut. They're the flip top ones that you can close. We'll be making our sauerkraut in this size one. So this is a 1 litre, but equally if you have a much bigger one, so this is 1.5 litre, if you have this size, that's totally fine as well. It actually gives a little bit more headspace for your sauerkraut. For the carrot, I think we're going to do 2 carrot ferments just to give you 2 different techniques. One, we're going to need the kilo of carrots, but we're going to do 500 grams grated into this size, which is a 500 ml Kilner jar. So we've got something like that, and we've got 2 of those, that'll be very useful. Or if you just want to make one type of carrot ferment, then just to do it in the litre one as well. Or equally, you can use things like these large glass jars. So these are the ones that you can find in Lidl and IKEA, and maybe even some of the Tesco's and that. The ones that you find like the gherkins in, or pickled beetroot. So you can get some of these large size jars, that'd be great, and they have a lid as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about are the weights. So when we're making sauerkraut or our carrot ferments, we want that the fermentation process to happen in an anaerobic environment. So as a result, it's very important that the vegetables stay below the level of the liquid that we have in the jar. So as a result, we do need a weight to go on top of that. So the kind of things that you can use as weights, I use these little glass tea lights. So these again are from IKEA. You can buy them in packs of 3. So I've a load of those just for this purpose. So if you feel you want to get into fermentation, it's well worth getting something like that as a weight. You can also use the cabbage heart. So that's why we're going to keep those cabbage hearts. So we've got 4 of them now. So, we can use them for their different fermentation. So they're very handy to use as a weight. You can also use, if you have them already, things like baking beans. So these, these little ceramic beans that you use for baking, and you can put them into a muslin cloth. So if you have a muslin cloth, and we'll use an elastic band with that. So that can be used as a weight as well, just to hold the ferment down under the liquid. And the last thing, if you really don't have any of those things, and I understand that the restrictions, it's hard to get out to the shops to buy bits and pieces, but if you have a plastic bag, you can use that as your weight as well. So we're going to fill that with a saline solution, and we can put that on top of our ferment, and it's really just to hold the vegetables down in underneath the liquid. So we're going to use one of those for across all 3 ferments. So I think that's it. As I mentioned, if you could just have your cabbage shredded and ready to go, and just keep some of the outer leaves and keep the core as well, because we might use those. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll talk to you all then. Thanks a million.